Ever and ever with his music. I love Guam, right? How does this song not live forever? Great message.
Not anymore, but he's always gigging in heaven.
Yeah, amen. 7/12, Wednesday, Hump Day, January 26th. Speaker Theresa Lahi coming up. So is our Education Superintendent, John Fernandez. Right now, though, we have Senator Sabina Perez, Democrat. She is the Oversight Chair for Environment, Revenue Tax, Labor, Procurement. Is that everything?
BSP.
Bureau of Stats and Plans, that's right. For the 36th Guam legislature. And I guess we'll go ahead and start. We'll just go round robin, Senator. But if we could just start on environment, as there was a huge news yesterday. I mean, this is kind of pretty big deal. Earth Justice partnering with Prutehi Litekyan to bring a federal suit against the Air Force, right, relative to these the open burn pits up at Taragi. And just your reaction.
Yeah, I think, if there's any entity that's breaking environmental laws, they have to be held accountable, whether it's the Marbo Cave or whether it's, military even. In my oversight hearings, I've brought the attention of the open burn, open detonation, that, we need to definitely push our agencies to require less basically protect our environment, protect our people. It's been known that open burning and open detonation are antiquated technologies, and it produces a lot of toxins that are released readily into the environment. One of the issues also is the chemical of PFAS, which is a forever chemical, and that just gets dispersed with burning and open detonation. It doesn't get, basically it doesn't break it down. And so PFAS is one of those emerging contaminants that causes health impacts, such as, it causes impacts to our immune system, our thyroid system, and some of them are even known to be carcinogenic. And we're talking about an area in the northern part of Guam, near Jigo, and Berido, where most of the population live. It's also where we draw water from. Most of the water that supplies the island is in the northern part. And so, really it's about protecting our island, protecting the health of our people. And, I think this is important to, hold U.S. military accountable if they are, polluting the environment. And that could be avoided. There are safer technologies out there that, should be utilized instead of open burn and open detonation.
Did you also have a comment? Because I know that you had shared that the permitting process, because they're trying to get a new permit so that they can open pit burn up there, right? But I talked to Guam EPA and they said the permit's under review. But what I did hear just from around town was that they're being asked to come up with alternatives to open pit burning. Are you? What do you think though with this lawsuit in play? Do you foresee Guam EPA approving this permit while they're being sued, while the Air Force is being sued for it?
Yeah, that's difficult to say. I don't know what the situation is with the U.S. EPA, because I know Guam EPA is in consultation with U.S. EPA. And so depending on what the consultation requires, but then again, now with this lawsuit, that might change the situation a little bit more. But yeah, open burning, that definitely needs to be, I think, not permitted. If you look at the Northern Marianas, my understanding is, in talking to some officials in U.S. EPA, that they did not have an open burn permit in the CNMI. So, at the very least, no open burning, should be allowed here on Guam if it's not even applied in the Northern Marianas. Open detonation, there's a study that came out where there's safer technologies for those explosives. So, and it's being implemented in other communities. So I think, we need to prevent any kind of pollution from happening if there are safer technologies there out there.
Right.
that can
Senator,
substitute.
Reverend Tax, I know that you said you had kind of, you had to sit down with him this week. What type of update do you have?
So yeah, they're basically on. So the online filing is will be up and running next week. So yeah, I believe they're doing some testing right now, but they seem pretty confident that it should be ready by next week. So that would definitely help out in streamlining their processes and getting the tax refunds sooner. With child tax credit, they're pretty much on point. They've given out about $55 million, and so that's about half. So they gave out the advance of 50%. So, but they are guaranteed to give out the other half. So the federal government's good for reimbursement for the other half. And in regards to like the cigarette stamp tax, they haven't given me a final briefing. I think they're still working out the details with the AG's office. And so their court hearing was postponed, I think, till February. They were supposed to have a hearing last week, I believe. But yeah, it got postponed due to a scheduling, court scheduling, I think was one of the issues.
So you said online filing, they're hoping to stand it up by next week, because I did get, some people were asking me if I knew when the 1040 for this year would be up on the website. So are we just looking at maybe next week?
Yeah, next week. And part of the issue too is IRS is still finalizing some of their forms. So yeah, they want to make sure that everything is aligned with the IRS.
Have they beefed up their website at all since that whole RISE Act fiasco? Because I remember they said they were going to look at it, and I'm just wondering, are we prepared if there is like an influx? Because I know people are hard up; they want to file early so they could get their refunds early. So maybe anticipating preparation of a rush when they do get all the forms up. So are we prepared for that?
Yeah, good point. I think one of the issues back during the All Rise was that there was a change in the routing number, so that it wasn't entirely, from my understanding, it wasn't from the automation itself. It was the number. So it was yeah. So then they had to do all the notifications and then having to mail it out. But I think they're slowly but surely they are overcoming a lot of these little glitches. So that was a different issue, I believe. But as far as standing up, it's hard to say, to predict what sort of issues that might come up too at this time around. But it's good to see that their BPT filings are online, so they're switching over to that. During the past OPA audit, they were behind, I believe, 13 months, and they started online filing for BPT, I believe, in March 2021 when it was required, and so they're 4 months out of catching up to that point. So I think we'll see a lot of changes happening once this fully gets implemented.
I wanted to talk with you because I attended a press conference yesterday. It was a press conference held by Animal Wellness Action and Wayne Pacelli. And he had basically said, and this was confirmed with the agriculture director, Chelsea Munya-Brecht, is that, the last few press conferences he's been talking about the shipment of what he says are fighting roosters to Guam. And I think the statistic they used was there was something like 12,000 what they said again were fighting birds. And I think previously the agriculture director had come back and said, oh no, they had said it was for breeding. But anyway, kind of one of the big reveals in this press conference yesterday was Wayne Pacelli said that he's been talking with agriculture director Chelsea Munya-Brecht, and that she's committed to kind of aligning their procedures with the federal law, meaning that if people are bringing in certain types of birds, that they'd have to have more proper documentation though. But I remember I talked to you about you trying to align local law with the federal cockfighting ban, and you'd said that this was something that you might want to look at in this term. Is there any update on that?
Right now, there isn't an update for aligning local law with federal law, but I do support the efforts of the Department of Agriculture. And I think that definitely is telling when a lot of the birds are we already have a lot of a lot of birds here that can satisfy the breeding requirements if they're producing eggs, right, for agricultural purposes.
Yeah.
So I support those efforts.
Yeah, it was interesting because I know in talking to some people, they had said, "Oh well, if the Postal Service allows these cocks to be shipped into Guam, then what's the problem?" And so I asked Wayne that in the press conference yesterday, and he had said that they're actually in communication with the United States Postal Inspection arm, and this is like the arm of the Postal Service that they enforce, I guess, and regulate things, and that they were going to be a little more stringent in how they kind of monitor these shipments, right? Because it is a good point. I mean, if it's illegal, then why is the Postal Service allowing it? I guess it was kind of the train of thinking, and so that's something to look at.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure Wayne is really on top of this. So yeah, he does bring up a good point. If they're predominantly male birds,
right. Procurement, General Services Agency. I know that we had kind of talked about the public auditor's audit on the sole source procurement, emergency purchases, but is there any update with the GSA?
Not at this time. I know they're sending their I believe they're trying to keep up with their monthly reports. I think right now, not seeing a lot of activity with the nothing to report right now with sole source and emergency procurement since the last time I had my hearing. So yeah, I'm slowly making reforms on the procurement. Sole source, we recently passed legislation tightening up the requirements for sole source. Previously, it was basically we can award a contract with a simple determination. Now there has to be cost considerations. There has to be a proper vetting. If there are other vendors out there that can supply any good services, and so. Yeah, and then so basically, slowly but surely, trying to improve and make these processes more accountable and transparent. And really, it's about limiting non-competitive practices so that we are getting the best value for government.
Yeah, I got to follow up on that golf cart thing. Thank you. It's reminded me about that.
Yeah, that's I believe one of the reason why it was held up is. The chief procurement officer was not on. Yeah, but
yeah,
I believe she's back.
Oh, she's back. Okay, I got it. Did you have a reaction at all? We had an interview with the Admiral yesterday, and we were talking about the Eagles Field. I mean, this was it was huge, actually. And I don't know if the governor got the memo, but he was saying basically that Eagles Field might be off the table as an option for the construction of the $1 billion healthcare complex. And he was saying it was because they're now looking at that area for missile defense. And I mean, he didn't come right out and say that, hey, yeah, forget about the $1 billion healthcare complex there. But I mean, it kind of seemed like it was a done deal.
Yeah. So I don't know what caused. I mean, obviously the money caused the change in their decision, but I think what needs to be reiterated is that it's just obvious the lack of the power dynamics or the imbalance of power dynamics between Guam and the U.S. And I think that the taking of the land, this land should be returned to the native landowners. To use it as a missile defense, for missile defense, I think really flies in the face of the U.S. government's responsibility to the people of Guam, that they are supposed to protect the cultural and natural resources until the time that we achieve self-determination. So it's really, jeopardizing any future uses by the Chamorro people. As they militarize our lands, it's good land, and once you set it to military purposes. A lot of the times it's contaminated, and we've heard from these landowners that it was used for farmland. It was rich farmland.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate to see these things happening before our very eyes. The Texan and the firing range. It's a primary forest that protects many of the endangered species that can be found nowhere else in the world. Some of which cannot be found anywhere else in the world. It contains our history. So I think that it's disheartening to see that we lack this sort of control over our own lands.
Yeah. I really feel for the original landowners, because it was, and I interviewed a few of them. It was basically like they turned on the TV one day and the governor was talking about building a $1 billion healthcare complex on land that they originally owned. And we're talking about living, breathing original landowners. We're not talking about the grandson of a landowner who had passed away, 50 years ago. There are actually a couple living original landowners. So it went from them seeing their own governor totally disregard any concern, interest, or even acknowledgement of these original landowners. It went from that to the admiral basically pulling the whole thing off the table. And so I think the real punching bag in all this, it's not the governor's, desire to build the thing, and now that's not going to happen. It really is the original landowners, because they were kicked by their own governor, and now they're being kicked by the admiral. It sucks.
Yeah, right. It just brings to light that, these past injustices are still current injustices that need to be redressed.
Senator, could we end on labor? I know that you've been big on the job training, right? And then I'd seen something where there was like 1 million people who don't even want to work on Guam or something like that.
Yeah, that's a concern that, although the unemployment rate fell, some of that got shifted to people not in the labor force. So in order to be counted as unemployed, you have to be seeking work. And so now we're seeing this trend where people are just not seeking work. And that is a concern. And maybe part of the issue is, the pandemic. People are afraid to go back to work, especially now with Omicron being very, it spreads much more easily. And this is something, we still need to address. How do we protect the public and as well as rebuild our economy at the same time? I think, the policies definitely need to be communicated, the reasons behind the different policies. Yeah. And I think people are left to their own defenses sometimes, like, okay, so, how am I going to protect myself? They have to consider the risks now. But perhaps one of those risks is, going to work and getting it there. So, but, I'm still optimistic. We need to find, there's solutions out there, and it's just a matter of getting together and figuring out what those solutions are. I do have measures that I want to introduce to help bring our people back to work. But I think safety is always one of those concerns still.
Yeah, and a lot of these like public health guidances that they change whenever the wind blows. Now they're saying the fifth day testing that was previously in the guidance, where if you had come into contact with a known positive on the fifth day, you're supposed to get tested. And now they're saying that because of a shortage in test kits, not because of the science, but because of a shortage in test kits, they're no longer mandating that people do that. But the problem is a lot of what they communicate, there's a lag between what they communicate and what like your big boss knows. And so if your big boss is like, oh no, you need a negative test to come back in here, but then public health says you don't, but there's no communication with, the businesses, and they basically like keep these things out in the middle of the night, and nobody really knows, and then we're left explaining it, and it only warrants more questions. It is very frustrating. Right. And so there is that part of it too. It's where, 3 months ago, we told people that if they were a close contact, they had to get tested. And now it's like, oh, no, just go to work.
Yeah, that's a difficult situation. I know whatever we control. So for instance, I think we all know how to keep safe, wear masks, watch your distance, and then also vaccinate. I do recommend vaccination. that is a way to protect yourself. Yeah, so unfortunately, not everybody's vaccinated, so we have to protect them as well. This is part of our responsibility. We have to protect each other. Especially if they're elderly, they have those comorbidities. I think there are measures that we can take within our own hands to protect ourselves and our families and our loved ones. Yeah, I just hope everybody's safety at this point. And whether we can test or not, there are measures that we can take into our own hands to protect ourselves and our loved ones.
Right. Yeah. And it's when you talk about vaccination, right? It's never these rabid, crazy anti-vaxxers who die. It's always, when you read it, like who's dying and they're unvaccinated. It's all like really elderly people who are very sick. So, I mean, it is. What are we doing to reach that population? There's just so many shortcomings that we can point at during this pandemic, unfortunately, but it is what it is. Oh, that's the first it is what it is I said that this morning, right? Not bad. 90 minutes went by. Senator, thank you for your time. Anything in closing you want to add in?
No, just thank you, and I hope everybody's safe out there, and have a great day, and thank you, Chris.
All right, thank you, Senator Sabina Perez. There, Environment, Revenue Tax, Labor, Procurement Chair. She says that she had a meeting with Revenue Tax this week, and they're planning on rolling out the online filing next week. Now, part of the lag is, because I know you guys are getting your W-2s, part of the lag is that the IRS nationally has not completed some of their forms, and so I guess local Revenue Tax is kind of waiting for that before they stand up the online filing. At 7:33, we're going to continue with the 36th Guam Legislature. We're going all the way to the top, though, with the Speaker, and that's next right here on the link. We'll take a quick break. We're brought to you by Pacific Points, Cabo Enterprises, IT&E, and Jack in the Box. Good morning.